I was really happy when this one popped up on Reverb. Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. So I've got a couple of complete sets that I'm trying to piece together, like the Guitar of the Week, Guitar of the Month, the Les Paul Vixen, Goddess. But this particular guitar model is one of the hardest ones to hunt for, just because not many of them are made. They're not super ultra desirable, so they don't normally get listed correctly when they do come up. And lastly, I want to piece it all together so people understand them better, because I've never seen a single photo documenting all of the different variations. But today, my friends, we need to be sneaky. I finally found a Gibson MIII Stealth. It's so stealthy, you can't even see it in this case. Huzzah! Look at this thing. That is a fantastically strange, weird Henry J. era Gibson. So the Gibson MIII was first introduced around 1991, and the initial run only lasted a couple of years, but they had so many different iterations. The one you're mainly going to see on the market is called the MIII Standard. They have a poplar body. You can find them with pick guards and without pick guards. I'm not sure if there was a model designation difference between them, but they were a pretty cool Gibson branded Super Strat that featured an HSH pickup setup as well as a Schaller Gibson branded Floyd Rose. And of course, don't forget the freaky backwards headstock. This is a very Majesty-esque guitar before the Majesty even existed. If you don't know what a Majesty is, check out this video right here. But these were basically Gibson's final attempt at a Super Strat, and in my opinion, they are the best. Prior to that, you had the Victory series, the WRC models, the US1/U2, which is really cool looking. Then you had the weird Q/Alpha series guitars like the Q100, but the M3 is really where it took off. So alright, we've got the standard down. Now let's learn about the other 10 or so models. The next one is called the MIII Deluxe, and this is one of my favorite ones out of the entire series because they have these cool sandwiched together layers of wood that just make them look so interesting. So you got a walnut top with a dyed red poplar stripe going down here, and then you got a maple body, and then another layer of walnut, and then even some more maple. Very nice examples will actually have figured maple within these, and sometimes you can also find the figured maple necks. So from there, the Standard and Deluxe also had an H series called the H Standard and the H Deluxe. What does the H mean? It means they got rid of the middle pickup. You only have two humbuckers, and instead of a blade style switch right here, you just had a regular Gibson toggle switch. So that means you could find the HH setup in a solid color as well as that cool multi-layered body. Now stepping up, there was also something called the M4 Standard and the M4S Deluxe. So the M4 Standard is pretty much the same as the M3 Standard as far as photos can show us, except for they utilize the Steinberger jam trem system instead of the Schaller system. But the M4S Deluxe featured a black Limba body, again featuring the Steinberger jam trem system. So that's always been a really cool one that I've been wanting to document. So imagine my surprise when I see this show up on Reverb. It's got the black Limba body. Now if you don't know what black Limba is like the official term of how you say Korina. So usually we're used to seeing like white Korina, like you would find on the original 50s Explorers and Flying V's. But no, you can also find this kind of darker stained one. And you know, anything that Gibson makes with Korina generally gets pretty expensive, so when you can get one of these that's not as ridiculously priced, it's kind of fun. This is a really chunky body. So I initially thought this was one of the M4S Deluxe models because it was just listed as a Gibson M3. I had to do a little bit of research, but no, after going through the models, this is a Stealth. So the biggest difference between this one and the M4 is the fact that we still have the Schaller trem system instead of the jam trem, but then look at our fretboard here. It is an ebony fretboard with white pearloid arrowhead inlays. So naturally, finding a Stealth is pretty uncommon. I've been searching a while for one of these. So that pretty much does it for the original run M3 guitars. So once again, that's M3 Standard, Deluxe, H Standard, H Deluxe, Stealth, M4 Standard, and the M4S Deluxe. Now after the original run, these have been reissued a few times. There was one part of the All-American series, which was basically trying to create cheaper budget level guitars of other guitars that also existed. They were done around 1997. It utilizes the M4's jam trem system, but it's got a triple humbucker setup. And also in the early 90s, there was a Les Paul Classic M3 and a Studio M3, kind of part of the same family because they utilize the exact same control layout here, which is a 5-way toggle switch with the HSH setup, a master volume, master tone, and a coil split switch. And then in the early 2010s, there was another more proper reissue of the M3 Standard, except for this time we have a straight up mahogany body and they gave it some really exotic colors. My favorite one's that green one. And they finally got a true Floyd Rose at that point. So first impressions with this one, this body is really chunky. Like, this is the heaviest M3 I think I've ever had. Usually Korina is known for being pretty light, but maybe the black Korina is a little bit different. But at first feel, I almost thought this was like maybe it left the factory as a satin finish, but I think it just desperately needs cleaned up. But besides that, I really love these M3s, even though I generally am not a big fan of like Super Strat style guitars. They have these ultra pencil thin necks on them. And part of what makes these so effortless to play is they have almost no heel on the back. I mean, it's really sculpted away. It's very comfortable to play in the higher registers of these guitars. So if you're looking for a new shredder guitar, this might not be everybody's first choice, but I really do enjoy the Gibson M3. It is a very unique beast. So I've still got a ways to go on my collection of getting all of those iterations, but I've got 2 of the cooler ones so far. So if you're selling any of these other iterations at a fair price, let me know. I might be interested, but I'm also being picky. I'm looking for like the nicest looking wood grained ones, because I think it's going to be awesome to have like 13 or so M3s, including those Les Pauls, all up together. But for today's episode, let's continue focusing on this one as we throw it on the workbench to take a look at its parts and specs. Inside our M3 Stealth here, I've got it all cleaned up, and I am going to stick with my theory that I believe these did come with a satin finish from the factory. Or at least it wasn't a full-on gloss, because even after I polish this up, you can still kind of see that area where a player's hand has rubbed against it a little bit more, so that reveals a slightly more buffed area. But it's looking pretty glossy now that I've polished it up. But since the finish wasn't perfect, I would rather it be more uniform like this anyways. But something you guys might have missed is the Stealth has all black pickups, whereas the big thing about the M3s is from far away you're supposed to think it's just a Stratocaster with 3 single coils, because they play with the whole zebra bobbins, but this one utilizes all black. But oddly enough, Gibson used the exact same pickups in every single model. All these different iterations, did they really need them in such a short time span with only body woods being different? But it's the 496R and the 500T in the bridge, so these are hot ceramic pickups. And then they called the single coil the NSX. It just looks like a regular single coil on the back. And since this particular model doesn't use a pick guard, we get to actually have pickup rings. But check out some cool markings in our neck pickup cavity. Looks like it says NA, likely for natural. Then we've got some letters and maybe a date. 1219 DSMS, I'm not entirely too sure. But it is cool to see the maple long neck tenon right there going into the black Korina body. Similar stuff in our middle pickup cavity, and here's what the bridge cavity looks like. The finish in the cavities definitely has a slightly more satin feel to it. But before we talk about the Floyd, let's talk about our electronics. So it's master volume, master tone. This is a coil split switch, kind of. It just selects what mode you're in, either 1 or 2. And then you have a 5-way blade style switch, just like a Stratocaster. So you have your individual selections here. So in one of your settings, it's just like a regular Stratocaster. You have your neck, neck middle, middle, middle bridge, and bridge. And then when you switch it over, it kind of turns into a 3-way toggle switch. You've got your bridge, then you've got your neck and bridge in a traditional middle tone, and then you have just your neck. But then this position gives you an enhanced tone option for your neck pickup that sounds very similar to just rolling off the tone of your neck pickup, but it's slightly different. And then the all the way up position is a built-in kill switch if you want to do any stutter effects. That one always trips people up when they buy them, thinking that something's not wired right. Nah, it's just a built-in kill switch. Now, as far as the readings within the circuit, I think our fancy electronics kind of mess with it a bit, because in the 2 position I get about 4.5, then we've got 2.8, 7.65, 3.2-ish, and then 5.23. Then in our 1 position, we get nothing, which should be our kill switch one. 8.78, which should be the tone enhanced. And then 8.77, which should just be your neck. Then it should be your middle toggle switch position, so 5.62, that's about right. But then it doesn't give me anything for the bridge, so I don't know. But condition-wise, we got like a ding right here. Kind of a more extreme ding in this location. Some picking scratches, nothing too bad. But now, as far as our trem system, it is Gibson branded, but then over here it does say it is a licensed Floyd Rose. But we're not done yet. Over here is where we see it says made in Germany by Schaller. So it's a Gibson branded Schaller Floyd Rose. So I've been hunting one of these for such a long time, and to finally have it in my collection, I'm happy. But I'm gonna be honest, this is kind of an ugly guitar, but like ugly in a cool, grungy way. I think a straight up white Korina one probably would have looked too plain for my own tastes. But a lot of the poplar body ones, sometimes you can find this dark streaking in it, kind of similar to the old Hickory Les Paul that we had just documented. So if you like the dark streaks, you can potentially find it in the other bodied ones. I mean, had the M3 came out in the early 80s, I think we would have a completely different story than these coming out in the early 90s, because you've got a little swoop right here, it continues around the edge, and then this is a very dramatic comfort cut, which makes it great to play sitting down. These are fantastic guitars, people just don't give them a chance. Check out this ebony fretboard, that thing cleaned up nicely, and I love these arrowhead inlays. And it's not necessarily the top view that I love these things from. This is like the equivalent to a 70s SG inlay, but viewed from the side. I love that. It looks especially striking on the ebony board with the white markers, because the maple boards just have the black pearloid. The other thing that's kind of fun about these inlays is the side of the neck does have a little bit of lacquer on it. So not that you'll be able to tell in the video, but the edges of the inlays are slightly yellow as compared to the tops that don't have any lacquer that have stayed pure white. As far as fretboard radius, it doesn't look like they're going too crazy here. I measure about 12 inches. They do get the extended scale length at 25.5 inches, but we have a nut width of 1.72 inches. That increases to 2.1 by the 12th. And these have ultra thin necks, 0.74 inches at the first fret neck depth, and a meager 0.79 by the 12th. I knew these things were thin, but I never realized that they actually measured that thin. It's funny, you don't find that on a Gibson neck hardly ever. Here's that neck profile at the first fret and the 12th fret. It definitely gets a lot flatter as you reach the higher fret registers, where it starts off a little bit more rounded to make chords a little bit more comfortable, but these are super slim necks. I know this looks just like a regular 60s neck, but no, it does not feel like that at all. Because basically all your hand comes in contact with is the edges of the neck. Everything else is not even there. Being a Floyd Rose, you do have to utilize a locking nut system. Basically, you put your strings through there, and then you lock it down using these. And another spot where the Stealth is different, they get a plain black truss rod cover that is multi-ply. But most of the other ones get this cool tiger striped one, but that's not very stealthy. As far as the rest of the headstock, we've got some light wear and tear. After cleaning it, I noticed that there is some light lacquer chipping around some of these tuners, but thankfully it's a black headstock, so it hides it pretty well. And of course, we've got that upside down Gibson logo looking kind of cool. Quick thing I learned about M3s this time is the truss rods are really hard to get to. They are very deep. So deep that the normal Gibson truss rod tools can't actually reach them. So these things were useless. The multi-tools were useless as well. Even my really professional StewMac one can't quite get it, which is frustrating because there's just a little bit of relief in the neck that I need to straighten out because I'm getting buzzing towards the middle of the neck. So I guess I'm just gonna have to play it the best I can as is. Moving on to the backside, polishing it really brought out some of the flamed figuring in the back as well, so that was a nice little surprise. Here's the backside of the trem. Looks like it came stock from the factory with 3 springs set up similar to this, but you can see some more of the black Limba wood in here. And what's nice here is the back plate is actually recessed into it, so it will be completely flat. It's not like a Stratocaster that sticks up. And I've always liked the design of the route for these guys because they just look like coffins. Now, very similar to the Tony Iommi necklace coffin that we had for his signature SG from this episode. As far as the wiring goes, it's a whole mess of stuff in here. You've got your mini toggle and you've got your 2 regular pots, as well as that tone enhancer that sits on top of that other one. So it looks pretty complicated and they had to fit it in a very tight area. But you do have your output jack on the side, and the only thing that appears to be replaced on this guitar is we've got Schaller strap locks, which I don't blame the guy for putting them on there. But not only do you have that huge comfort cut up here, you also have a very generous belly cut. And once again, I really cannot stress how effortless it is to play this thing. The heel gets completely sculpted out of your way. Because in case you didn't notice, this does have 24 medium jumbo style frets, so it's a full 2 octaves on top of being a 25.5 inch scale length. I wish they would have sculpted out just a little bit more right there, because you really do have to kind of reach to get to the 24th, but all the way up to about the 23rd, you're effortless. Condition-wise, we definitely have some buckle worming back here when you're looking for it, but the wood grain kind of helps hide a lot of that. There's a little bit of finish missing in this area too. Some nicks and dings. Overall, not too bad. I can't be too picky when it comes to the M3s because mint condition ones, they don't exist. Not of the rare models anyway. And if they do, they're probably locked up in collections for a while. But unfortunately, no flame figuring in this maple neck, but occasionally you do find it. But this is another reason why I think these things started as a satin finish. It feels closer to a satin on the back of the headstock, and nobody's really ever touching this outside of the tuners. So that's a good indicator of probably how it left. So it's like one of those really nice satins. Whereas if you compare it to the neck that's been played in, it's like a full-on traditional gloss by this point, with some finish checking. But the serial number of this one dates it to 1991, very late in the year. Made in USA. All said and done, it's 8 pounds 3 ounces, which is only a little bit heavier than my Deluxe. However, all the weight, you can really feel it in the body of this one. But let's go ahead, plug it in, and hear how this one sounds. Okay, everything I told you on the workbench, kind of forget it, because this is either wired incorrectly from the factory or the Stealth just got wired slightly differently. So position 1 is that whole humbucker mode I was talking about. So position 5 is the kill switch. Do you still get a little bit of a signal out of it? Yeah. But it's good enough for this. But here's that whole tone enhanced section. It almost seems every M3 I play, that position sounds different on all of them. Sometimes it just sounds like a rolled off tone. But this one definitely has a little bit more of a piezo-like tone to it, so that's interesting. So position 3 here, it's just the neck pickup like it's supposed to be. And position 2 is still the same. It's your bridge and neck. However, position 1, I don't hear any difference. And I looked inside the control cavity to see if like a wire fell off or something, but no, it all looks good to me. So I don't know. Everything else seems to function the way most M3s do, but is it possible these were wired slightly different and I don't fully understand what's going on? I guess sometimes things just get lost to time. So if you own a Stealth, let me know if yours is wired in a similar way. So position 2 has all your coil split tones. Which I would say that's really where this guitar excels. Those all sound fantastic to me, and it proves that it's not like the bridge pickup is dead on this, because obviously it works in that position. Now that we know all about the Gibson MIII Stealth, what are my final thoughts on this? Honestly, I never know what to play on these. Like, I know what you're supposed to play on something like this, and it's very geared towards that, but it's like the same reason that I didn't really like the Majesty guitar. Generally, I do really like these M3s, but this Floyd Rose needs a little bit of a setup, and I'm not the right guy for that. I just don't have the patience. But this guitar was designed for a very specific reason in mind, and if that's how you like to play, it'd be great for you. I've got too heavy of a hand to really enjoy playing my usual licks on this, but I think ultimately I prefer the ones that have the maple fretboards because that just makes them even a little bit more insane for the whole Gibson actually making this. But the ebony is definitely a nice one to add to your collection if you're looking for something a little bit different. But these are just fascinating guitars and the best Super Strats that Gibson made, or the US1 model. But alright, Troglodytes, I hope you enjoyed tonight's episode. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you tomorrow on the next one. Take care. If you enjoyed tonight's episode, consider subscribing. I post videos like this every day. And you might even enjoy this next one.